Oh, howdy all, grab yourselves a beer, it is time for some Path of Exile discussion. So today there was a whole lot of information revealed about what GGG are working on during the second week of the Heist League. So a quick recap of how the league has gone so far. Day one, it launched to generally polarizing reviews. I loved it, a lot of other people didn't like the mechanic. Then there were some very significant changes to the mechanic made on day four. These empowered the loot and scoot loot strategy that ended up being a really broken loot fountain, where essentially there was just you could get phenomenal amounts of loot in heists with absolutely no risk. And then ultimately this led to major nerfs across the board to the loot in all the heists on about day 6 or so. It's still the case that the best strategy for playing heists is the loot and scoot strategy. So a quick recap of how heists work and how loot and scoot interacts with that. With heists, your first step, you start at the entrance and exit. Your first step is to run to a MacGuffin, just a little item that you pick up that is basically the focus of your heist. It's the thing you're there to steal. Once you pick up the MacGuffin, then the place goes into lockdown. Before you pick up the MacGuffin, there's a whole bunch of reward chests that you can access, and doing this increases the alert level of the complex. When you hit the MacGuffin, the alert level hits 100% and all of the chests lock. Then at that point, the kid gloves come off and the complex tries to kill you, throwing monsters at you from every single imaginable direction. The escape phase is generally really exciting, whereas the walk-in is a very calm walk through a very empty map. There's just basically not very many monsters during the first phase. The monsters that are there are pretty easy, and there's usually few relevant map mods in effect. As a result, you have two phases. The first one is where all of the loot is, and is very easy. The second phase only gives you rogue markers if you do complete it, and is very much more difficult. This created a situation where the best way to interact with heists is to walk in, select a bunch of loot, grab it, and then just walk out the front door without doing the heist objective. This is still the strongest way to play the league, and unfortunately all of the rewards have had to be nerfed around how powerful that strategy is. So a whole lot of things that you can do in the heists, to basically get a whole lot of chests. Because the easiest way to get those chests is so easy, the rewards for the entire league have been balanced around that. So what's being done to change this? Well, firstly, experience for monsters in heists. Experience is low at the moment. And their goal here is they're going to increase the experience while the complex is under lockdown. I think this is a really positive change, but I think they could do better. And the way that I think they should do better is by having a fixed amount of XP based upon the difficulty of the heist. So that's the monster level, that's also the rogue level required to beat it, and perhaps some other things like the length of the complex. These should be used, some formula should be generated that just determines a flat XP payout for each of these heists that you do. I believe that that's the way that the betrayal system works currently. So if you are, say, doing an intervention encounter and you encounter Elrion and It That Fled, when you kill Elrion, when you kill It That Fled, when you kill any of the trash that they spawn with them, you don't get any XP for those kills. Instead, when you then go through to the Betrayal organizational chart and decide what you're going to do with each of these characters, maybe you decide to execute Elrion and to imprison It That Fled. It's at the point that you make that decision on the organizational chart, you get a big surge of XP. I think that experience from monsters in heists should be awarded when you take the MacGuffin out of the complex. Have to be very careful that, I think it's Talina that has the ability to create duplicate heist targets. You have to be very careful that it's balanced with that in mind, but I think that is the best way to award XP for these. Don't give a huge amount per monster killed, because you're in there for an objective. monsters that you kill on the way, that assists you in getting to the objective, but they're not the objective. So that's what I think should be done there. Heist areas in maps are too long. I hadn't really been thinking this until I read this in preparation for this video, and I don't actually think that the problem is that the heist itself is too long. I think the problem is that the walking into the complex is too boring. So I think that this is a case of misidentifying the problem, and the reason that walking in is too boring is that if you are running, let's say you're running a monster level 82 heist, you've got to have a very powerful character to be able to do that. And if you've got a character capable of running, of even attempting the exit from a monster level 82 heist, you're going to find the walk-in extremely dull and boring. The monsters are just too easy. There's nothing really to interact with. There's no real failure condition that's plausible. It's just walk around, pick out a whole bunch of chests, loot them, and then either decide to do the contract or leave. So yeah, I find that this is misdiagnosing the problem, and that the problem fundamentally is that any character capable of completing the heist does not find the walk-in engaging, and the only reason people are saying it's too long is because it's a long period of time doing something not very engaging, just killing enough monsters to maybe regenerate your flasks. I think that the solution here is to somewhat redesign the heist encounters so that we start in the final room. That would be the only way that you can keep both the people that didn't like the original design of having alert for monsters kills, so that you can keep them happy, and also just get rid of that boring phase of the encounters. That would require a few other changes as well, notably that the side path chests would need to only unlock after you have seized the artifact, but I think it's the change that needs to be made. Opening job doors in heists. So the job doors are an interesting thing. They are entertaining to open when you are dealing with a big fight. They're also a chance to have a bit of a breather when you've been swarmed by enemies, and then suddenly it's like, oh, gee, that's great. Talina's going to take 4 seconds to open this door. That's exactly the chance I need to get my breath back after killing 60 monsters that were chasing me. Oh, and look, there's 50 on the other side as well. However, there are plenty of times that you need to open a door and there are no monsters aggroing you. At those times, I think that these job doors should be instant. None of this stuffing around with 4 seconds for an agility door or whatever it is. It should just be instantaneous, except when a monster has you or your rogue on their threat table, and that monster is within a certain radius of you. That radius could be quite long. It could be 2.5 screens or whatever. But when there's nothing within 2.5 screens, this should just be instantaneous. Anyway, the change that's actually being made is that they're reducing the number of heist job doors along the direct path to the primary objective, which need to be opened prior to lockdown. And we've increased the speed at which Cast and Talina complete the agility job. So the agility job is the worst of them. It's the one that takes the longest. And I think that this is, broadly speaking, positive, but doesn't solve the real issue. The real issue is that when you're under no pressure, waiting for doors is boring. When you're under pressure, waiting for doors is fine. It's just a chance to fight. Observer totems. So these are being reworked slightly, and the idea that's being changed is that the totems will be more visible, and also it'll be a bit more obvious when they're using their threat reduction ability, and it will be more dodgeable. I really have to play with this to formulate an opinion on it. New heist bosses and quests. So this league launched without all of the bosses complete. That's being fixed, and there's going to be 2 new boss encounters and their accompanying quest line in an upcoming patch this week. Following that, another boss encounter and quest line next week. Now, what I really hope to see with these, done, is that these bosses are at a bigger variety of difficulties than the bosses were in the previous league, so in the Harvest League. In the Harvest League, you had 4 different bosses of note. you have the tier 4 purple seed, the tier 4 blue seed, the tier 4 yellow seed, and a Sharpie. And they were all of roughly equal difficulty. I think that was a mistake. You want a situation where these bosses are wildly different in difficulty to each other. Ideally, I'd like to see one of them be aimed at a similar difficulty to the Eternal Labyrinth. That's the sort of thing that a casual player at endgame can beat, but maybe not on their first try, and that most veteran players will just stomp the first time they run it. That's good. That's something for people that are new to maps to aspire to getting better to, so that they can have a goal that feels very achievable in terms of a new boss to kill, a new league boss that they can work on killing. Then have another boss that's considerably harder than that, and I think that the sort of difficulty to aim for here is maybe Shaper, maybe Elder, maybe even a little bit harder, like Cirrus Awakening level 5. That sort of difficulty where there's a boss that the 24 or 40 players feel they can do, but that they also don't necessarily beat the first time they try it. That's the sort of thing that, again, for people that find the first boss too easy, it's something to aspire to getting better, to something to aspire to improving in order to beat. And then, as a third one, go for something that is much harder. Have it be a boss that the goal is that it's at least the difficulty of the Cortex, something that only a very small number of players will beat, but that will be an opportunity for something a bit exciting for people to watch if they're watching Twitch streamers fight it or whatever, and a boss that's really quite unforgiving and that gives an incentive to making your characters more powerful. And I think the right sort of difficulty to shoot for here would be something like on par with the difficulty of a 100% delirious Vaal Temple boss, or of a reasonably shallow depth All the Crystal King, or a fairly deep Kurgle, the Black-Blooded in the Delve Mines. Something a little bit harder than Uber Elder, a little bit harder than Cirrus Awakening level 8, maybe even quite a bit harder than them. So that's my thoughts on the new bosses and the quests. I think it would be really disappointing if they're all at roughly the same level. And I think it will be a major success if there's a large difference in the number of people that can beat the first one, the number of people that can beat the second, and the number of people that can beat the third one. Heist rewards. So the first thing that needs to be said about heist rewards before going through the changes that are being made is that these have to be balanced around the most broken way you can achieve them. And at the moment, the most powerful play that you can make in the heist content is the loot and scoot. The loot and scoot is essentially going into a heist with the intention of absolutely not setting the alarm off, not touching the MacGuffin, the artifact that you're chasing, and instead just cherry picking the best chests, looting those best chests, and leaving. It's a really, how would you put it? It's a really uninspired way of playing the game. Like it's the best strategy at the moment. It's not challenging. The risk versus reward calculus is way off, and essentially it's like you're just walking through a tier 10 map. I think the best thing I've seen said about it is that it's Vaults of Atzri, the League. That's what the loot and scoot turns the heist content into. So Vaults of Atzri, if you've not run it, it's a unique map where there's a number of chests. There's no obstacles in your way unless a prophecy puts a rogue exile there. There's nothing really to do except just go in, kill monsters, and take loot. Oh, sorry, not kill monsters. Just go in, open chests, take loot. Really dull and boring, in my opinion. People that are perhaps more loot motivated than me might enjoy it, but for me, it's just a chore to do once each league for the Awakening bonus. So the changes that are being made to heist rewards are to increase the value of various reward types. Generic rewards, so that's the ones that just have a chest icon, they don't specify any specific type. Talismans, which are dumpster tier normally, Metamorph, and Harbinger. So what I'm hoping to see here, firstly, talismans. These are better than people give them credit for, I believe. I believe that there's a biasing on the rolls in place at the moment. I got a really spectacularly well-rolled talisman very early in the league. It's not endgame gear because it can't be anointed, it can't have any influence mods on it, but it was just a really strong piece of early league gear. I think it had tier 1 or tier 2 dexterity mod on it, 89 life, which is a perfect roll for life, and might have had 2 resists on it plus a useful implicit. Generally speaking, this was the sort of thing that it was the best item I had drop for me on day 1 of the league, and it was a talisman of all things. So I've got a feeling that there is already a bias in place towards rolling better ones. But for talismans to be worth anything at all at endgame, they need more than that. And what they need is to drop with quality and to drop with a random anointment on them. If talismans dropped with this bias towards strong rolls and a random anointment, not necessarily a good one, and also 20 quality, then I think there'd be some situations where you would use them. So that's something that keep in mind. The generic rewards I haven't been too disappointed with. The metamorph rewards, on the other hand, are disappointing. But the reason for that is that catalysts are something that is only useful economy-wide in a small number. Either they're rare, like they were in Metamorph League, in which case the power gamers pay a lot for their ones, and the more casual players do without them entirely, or they're really, really, really cheap, and there's no real middle ground. Metamorph rewards have already flooded the economy with catalysts, and so I think that they're going to be disappointing no matter what happens. The only way you could really get around that is if there were more things added beyond catalysts to the metamorph loot tables. You could conceivably add itemized samples of bosses, but I think that seems a bit strange to get, an eye of the Guardian of the Chimera when you're running a heist. That seems sort of weird to get that anywhere except from a Pit of the Chimera map. You could add Metamorph Scarabs, and I think they will be, well, in fact, they say later that they will be doing that. So that's something that's of use, but again, Metamorph Scarabs is something that there's a fair amount of demand for them, but only really in bulk. They're hard to sell individually. So I'm interested to see what they do there. There is the Divination card, The Awakened, which I assume can drop from the Metamorph chest rewards, but even then, it's not that strong a pull. It's just not worth that much. Harbinger rewards I've been really impressed with, though. Maybe I've just been lucky. I had a stack of 5 Harbinger orbs drop. I've had a Beachhead. I know that this is where you get infused Beachhead maps. So I think that the Harbinger ones may already be quite good. I tend to always go for them. The other thing is that they can drop Exalted Shards, and conceivably even Mirror Shards if you were extremely lucky. But that's extraordinary luck, not normal luck. So yeah, I've been not unhappy with the Harbinger rewards already, but if they're getting upgraded, I'll take it. The key thing is balancing risk versus reward. At the moment, it's absolutely the case that this is off kilter because you get the same reward whether or not you do the artifact quest. That's the key problem with Heist at the moment. Whether you make the complex go into lockdown or not, you get the same rewards. We want to provide further incentive to prioritizing reward room chests. Therefore, we'll be removing some of the special rewards from main path chests and putting them in reward room chests. So this will be stuff like the 2 implicit corrupted rare jewels that you get. I'm actually intending to put out a video on some of the weird and wonderful stuff that you can get in the various heist reward chests, and so that can follow later. But there's a lot of cool stuff that drops in them, and if that's getting moved to the reward room chests, I think that's neither here nor there. Various reward room chests will also have a chance to drop scarabs which match their respective rewards. So for instance, a metamorph chest can drop a metamorph scarab. We are reducing the frequency at which generic room reward room chests appear in Heist as well. I haven't been that disappointed with the generic rewards, probably because so often they're currency ones, and the currency ones are pretty solid. So that's neither here nor there as far as I'm concerned. The big change here is Talisman and Metamorph rewards getting made a bit better. Now, there's some changes to the Rogue Marker economy here. This is interesting in that because I'm a Trade League player, I have absolutely no shortage of these markers. I am absolutely flooded with them because every time I want more of them, I just go and get 15 Chaos Orbs and go on and trade them with someone for 10,000 markers. So for that reason, I'm really frivolous with my markers. I'm wasteful with them, and I don't see this changing if the supply of rogue markers is getting increased. In fact, I think it's just all it'll do is depress the trade value of them more. However, maybe this is a good change for solo self-found players, so I'm going to withhold judgment on that. Let the SSF players have it. But from a trade player's perspective, this makes no change to the league. The collecting the artifact at the end of a loot is not at the end of a run is not going to become more lucrative because of this. In fact, it may even reduce the value of it, because it might reduce the value of rogue markers by more than 40%. Additionally, we plan to change blueprints to display all of the reward rooms that they currently contain, rather than just the ones that can be revealed. This is a buff to unveiling. It means that if you've got the option to unveil some of the more marginal rooms, like maybe you've got the ability to unveil an essence reward, and you can see that there's already a lot of good stuff there, you might decide, no, you know what, I'm not going to unveil that because I would rather just keep my inventory slots for what's already there in the random loot. We're also considering some changes to how much you can extend the lockdown timer, such that it's still an effective strategy, but not one that trivializes opening all reward chests. This one's interesting in that I don't actually think that the best strategy at the moment is. I'm aware of the tricks you can do with the extending the lockdown timer. For people that aren't aware of this, what you can do is gear your rogues to extend the lockdown timer as much as possible, and then you abuse this to basically open every chest in the place whilst you're leaving. So you run to the end, you then start opening the big reward chests, then you open all of the small chests, and eventually you hit a point where you trigger the alarm, but you might have as long as 45 seconds until the complex actually goes into alert, at which point you then just run to each of the chests and open it, and then walk out the front door. This is essentially just a different version of the loot and scoot, sometimes better, sometimes worse, but ultimately the key problem here is that very little of the rewards from heists are tied to actually completing the objective. They're all from these little side chests, and the heist content is not engaging until the alert goes off. So yeah, I think there's more fundamental problems that need to be fixed before anything much can be done with the heist rewards. And though the best solution that I've seen is simply to start you in the MacGuffin room and to have it so that when the complex goes on lockdown, all of the reward room chests, all of them become opened at that point. So they're locked until you pick up the MacGuffin, and then when you pick up the MacGuffin, then they become unlocked, and you have to get them on your way out. So you're fighting your way out whilst you're looting all these side rooms. I just think that's a far better design than what we've got at the moment. Anyway, portals back to the Rogue Harbour. This is a major bug fix where when you return to the Rogue Harbour, you could get put into the wrong instance, and actually you do get put into the wrong instance most of the time, preventing you from returning to your heist. They've got some plans on fixing this, which this is a really important one. It's actually one of the main reasons that you may wish to consider being in a party when doing your heists. And I do know that there have been people who have been creating a second account just for the purposes of leaving the second account in the Rogue Harbour, and then using the swirl to go and join that player. So you basically have your main character on your main account, let's say you're level 90, and then you've got some level 15 character in the group with you, and that level 15 character just sits in the Rogue Harbour doing nothing. But in the event that your level 90 character disconnects whilst doing the run-in on the heist, all they need to do is swirl to the level 15 in their party, and then they're in the same instance of the Rogue Harbour. At that point, they can re-enter their heist. This is counterintuitive, clunky, and needs to be fixed. Client instance crashes. These have mostly been fixed, but certainly they're not perfect yet, and every one of them that's fixed is an improvement. PlayStation 4 crashes. Apparently, the PlayStation 4 launch has been an absolute schmozzle, so hopefully that gets fixed for the console people. And then there's just an update on the Stash Tab folders and Stash Tab affinities. So this project is being split in two. The Stash Tab folders will be launched soon, but the Stash Tab affinities are further away. Stash Tab affinities is the big one. It's going to be the thing that's going to let you control-click items in your inventory and have them automatically go to the right Stash Tab. So if you've got, say, an Exalted Orb, a Chaos Orb, and a Metamorph Scarab all sitting in your inventory that you just looted, you'd hold control, you click the Exalt, it'll go to the Currency tab. Click the Currency, it'll go to the Chaos, it'll go to the Currency tab. Click the Metamorph Scarab, it'll go to the appropriate the Fragments tab, assuming that you've got that one. These are very, very deliberately being held off and carefully integrated. They need to be carefully integrated. These are not things that they can take any risks of stuffing up. This will be a huge... I think in a way, this will be one of the biggest indirect power boosts the game has seen since the introduction of loot filters, even though it doesn't look like it. The reason for that is that it's going to make it faster to complete maps, and therefore allow players to run more maps per hour, which means that gear acquisition will be faster. So this is not a small matter. This will be a huge change to the way the game is played. Next up, there's some info on the experiment or the official release of the macOS client, which is not currently finalized. They're hoping for week 3 of the league, but they're making no promises on it, which is the right decision. You know, you say when you think you want it out, but you don't make any firm promises on that. And then if it's not ready, then it shouldn't be released then. Lastly, there's a number of things that they're trying to fix that are coming up. But these are still being worked upon, and the tests, as always, have to be tested themselves. So there's a whole lot there. If you've got any comments or questions, definitely fire away below though. My overall thoughts are that the fundamental problem with the Heist League at the moment, and I don't think that this was the case on day one, although some other people didn't like day one Heist either. The fundamental problem with the league currently is that the run into the MacGuffin room is boring, and that the second fundamental problem is that it's better to completely ignore the MacGuffin and just during that boring time just take all the loot that you can safely and then leave. These comments will not on their own fix those problems. So ultimately I think there should be some more thoroughgoing changes made. And the best solution that I've seen is having players start in the Heist room, let us have time to prepare there, then grab the MacGuffin. When you take the MacGuffin, that then causes all the guards in the reward rooms to be redeployed onto the main paths, which means that those doors are open, and you can then loot the reward rooms on your way out. But of course, looting the reward rooms will be both lucrative, but also more dangerous than just leaving directly with the MacGuffin. I think that's a far better solution than what we've got at the moment. Anyways, gonna leave it there. If you've got any comments or questions, fire away below.